September 8th, SIG-H Rush Barbecue. My dad was getting mad at me because I kept getting into trouble, and he had to keep paying for lawyers. Rightfully so. Imagine sending your kid off to school, which is costly enough, and then having to pay even more for their legal bills. I figured if I was going to avoid a third alcohol ticket, that being safe in a fraternity house is where I needed to be. There, I could be safe within the confines of the house and be with a bunch of individuals that had my back if shit ever hit the fan. The next afternoon, I received another call from someone from SIG-H asking if I was Mike and if I was going to come over for the midday barbecue and party later that night. I was feeling pretty burnt out from all the partying I had already done, but I figured that a party during the day with barbecue couldn't hurt. If I was going to pledge a fraternity, I just wasn't sure if SIG-H was the right choice for me, so I was somewhat hesitant to attend. They asked me to dress up, super lame, so I wore khakis and a nice dress shirt. I was high as fuck at the time and couldn't wait to get out of the dorms. When I got to the barbecue, everyone there was wearing SIG-H Greek-lettered shirts, or no shirts at all, and I felt pretty embarrassed at the time. I felt like it was my first setup for humility. Come to a party dressed up, and the rest of us are going to be in casual wear. I happened to recognize one of the other rushes. His name was Tony DeLora. I had met Tony in high school through a girl named Lana Martin, who taught me a valuable lesson about women. I knew Tony in high school before I had met him, because it was a well-known story in my peer circle that Tony had Lana and Sonia both suck his dick in the 5th or 6th grade. That's right, at the same time. These aren't two random ugly skeezers either. These are two very attractive women we're talking about. With that tidbit of sluttyology, back to the description of Tony. Tony was a short, jacked beach kid with a smile on his face all the time. He was very timid. Tony smoked weed with me in high school too. I had only met Tony a few times in high school, and up until this re-encounter, he was more of an acquaintance than a friend. He was dressed up like I was, so it made me feel a little better. I told him that I'd get at him later, and moved on to socialize with more fraternity brothers. During the barbecue, the fraternity brothers were calling the invitees up for pledge interviews. This is also what is known as rushing. Rushing is essentially pre-pledging. I didn't realize how many people SIG-H had in their fraternity until I saw their numbers at the barbecue. It was even different seeing the house during the day without a bunch of horned-up college kids buzzing around everywhere. When I asked someone else what the fraternity was doing in the house, they said they were asking a few interview questions while videotaping. When I got called to go inside, I went armed with my best jokes. I walked through the large screened-in back porch and into the foyer of the house. While I walked through the house, I glanced at old pictures laying on the ground needing to be hung up. They were of brothers that had graduated in previous years. For the first time, I realized that every surface of the walls had some sort of fraternal or Greek symbol on it. From pictures of brothers, sporting events, paddles, fraternity awards, there wasn't any space left on the wall for any liquor to be spilled on. Maybe that was the plan. My scouring was interrupted when I was called upstairs. The bedroom I was called into belonged to Kyle. It was on the 2nd floor of the house. There were 3 large bedrooms on this floor, but only 2 were occupied. Kyle had one room, and Zeke had the other. The 3rd bedroom had a bar set up in it. There was a bathroom on the floor just outside Zeke's room and down the hall from Kyle's room. The bathroom and bar room were often a hotspot during parties, while the other 2 bedrooms were often locked. This was my first time in either of the bedrooms. When I entered this large room for the first time, I couldn't get over how massive it was. Basically, its own apartment with the lack of a shower and toilet. The room had a wall divider for the sleeping area. The open door revealed an unmade bed in a large sleeping room. The part of the bedroom I stood in had 3 sofas set around a large screen television. I sat down on a comfy sofa that I had all to myself. 2 of the brothers sat across from me, one holding a video camera. The other sat to my right. He asked the questions. They introduced themselves as Kyle, Forrest, and Ron. Kyle was tan, skinny, and had black hair. Forrest was short, with red curly hair. He had huge arms with tattoos of Greek letters all over them. Ron was a handsome beach boy, with brown hair and an infectious smile. They asked me if they could record the interview so that they could show all their fraternity brothers at their fraternity meeting. The video would help the fraternity make unanimous decisions on which interviewees would be selected as pledges. I said I didn't mind. They wanted to ask me 3 questions to determine if I would be a good pledge. I agreed, and the interview proceeded. They started with an easy question. What animal would you like to be? I said I would like to be a walrus because they have the world's second largest penis. I didn't even know if it was true or not, but believed it to be so because I had heard it in the 51st Dates movie. They all laughed, and then Kyle, the one leading the questioning, asked, "Which one's the first?" Forrest piped up from behind the camera and said, "I am." Everyone had a chuckle, and we carried on. The second question was an easy one too. Tell us your most embarrassing moment. I couldn't think of my most embarrassing moments at the time. Now that I'm older, they would be too numerous to divulge in one sitting. I finally thought of one. Well, I got 2 alcohol charges in the first week of school, and now my dad's calling me Two-Strike Mike. They laughed again, but it wasn't enough. The walrus joke had set the bar too high, and now they were hungry for humor. "Tell us another one," Ron blurted out. I paused, and I recalled a story that had happened to me years earlier as a kid. I was working at a store and had gotten lunch for everyone and had no car to haul back the large food order. While running across a 4-lane highway, holding Subway in both hands, my pants fell down around my ankles. It was awful. The crows were satisfied. They got their cackle and moved on to the final question. Our final question is, why do you want to join our fraternity? I had to be strategic with my answers since the brothers could re-watch the recording. Everything I did could be subject to analyzing to the 10th degree. I answered politically by saying, I want to join a fraternity to have a great time partying with good friends. I want to experience Greek life from the other side of the fence. Then my politically correct answers went out the door. I want to see some sick-ass parties with horned-up super sluts. I want to get ass like you've never witnessed. And I want to have a place to blaze that's not the dorms. I want to be in a place where I don't have to worry about running away when the cops come. And I was quickly interrupted. Yeah, that business with the cops has got to stop, you know. One more strike and they'll kick you out of here, Ron said. I left my speech at a halt and waited out the awkward moment that Ron had created. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm gonna go grab a burger before they're all gone. I stood up, shook Forrest and Ron's hands, dapped Kyle, and walked back outside for a well-deserved bite to eat. I went outside and socialized for a bit. I watched as many potential pledges went inside and came back out. Many had the same dull looks on their faces. Some looked cool and relaxed. Others, defeated. When all was said and done, the brothers thanked everyone for showing up. They said that they'd call those of us that would be invited to the next phase. If any of us were not called, they told us not to be discouraged and to try again next semester. I left with John Knowles, talking about how cool it would be to pledge together. John and I were both equally hyper and excitable. We discussed that it would be cool if we could have gotten our buddy Paul to pledge too. Paul didn't want to pledge his first semester because he was going to pledge another fraternity with his friend the second semester. He also had a buddy in that fraternity that could watch over him while he pledged. The more that John and I hung out, the more I realized he was going to be a fun future fraternity brother to party with. We went back to the dorms and smoked some bowls in my dorm room with Kirk, blowing them out the window. Then we went and hung out with Kirk's friend off campus, and we blazed at his house. A few days later, Eric Davis from the SIG-H fraternity decided to call me. He said that I was invited to go to the fraternity house at 3 p.m. on September 13th if I still wanted to pledge. This was it, the start of it all, the start of how my pledge process began.